disconnected,
This
Marvin.
conference will now be recorded.
All right, I'll go ahead and call the meeting of the Minnesota River Valley Transit for March 9th to order. Todd, do you want to do the oath of offices?
Yeah, if I can, David, we'll have you raise your right hand, and at the end, again, we'll just have you say, I will. I, David Swanberg, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and that of the state of Minnesota, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of a Minnesota River Valley board member to which office I have been appointed, and I'll do it to the best of my judgment and ability. If you will, say, I will.
I will.
All right, thank you. You're official. Best of luck and thanks for being with us, and we'll have some paperwork for you to sign in the future. It's government after all, so we want to make sure there's some paperwork to sign. So we're set to go. Thanks, Marvin. Pardon me?
No secret handshake or anything?
There's nothing like that. No. Maybe we should do something like that, but we haven't evolved that far.
All right, then I'd look for an approval of the agenda.
This is Steve Grahams, Mr. Chair, so moved.
All right, I got a motion. Can I get a second?
Emily will second.
All right, I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, Todd, do you want to do a roll?
I'll have Barbara. Barbara, if your microphone's working today, we'll let you do the roll if you would, please.
You kind of caught me off guard there.
Oh, sorry, Barb.
Councilmember Swanberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat.
Aye.
Councilmember Grahams.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye. All right. Agenda has been approved. I need looking for an approval of the minutes and disbursements. We'll do those in two separate, right, Todd, or is that one together?
Two separate is preferred, sir.
All right, so I'll look for approval of the minutes from January 12th.
So moved.
I move
Swanberg.
to. Okay. Then Emily will second as well.
All right, I got a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, Barb, do you want to take a roll?
Councilmember Bruflat.
Aye.
Councilmember Grahams.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye.
Councilmember Swanberg.
Aye.
All right, that's been approved. So then I'm looking for approval of the disbursement list from January to February of 21.
This is Steve Grahams, Mr. Chair, so moved.
All right, I got a motion. Looking for a second, please.
Second, Swanberg.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, Barb, go ahead and take a roll.
Councilmember Grahams.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye.
Councilmember Swanberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat.
Aye.
All right. The motion passes. Todd, do we have any visitors today?
I don't see any on our feed, so I do not believe there is any.
Okay. We don't have any old business, so we'll move right into new business. Update on mask requirements, Todd.
So, Mr. Chair and members, I'm going to turn this over to Wayne, your compliance manager, here in just a few moments. As you know, both in the city of Sueur and in St. Peter, we have policies related to mask requirements. DOT is required that MRVT has its own. And so I signed off on a mask policy. Wayne helped me out a week and a half ago, give or take a little bit, to meet the requirement. And so we'll ask Wayne to just hit some of the highlights. It's nothing really unusual, I don't think. I think it's to be expected and out of the requirements, mostly for users. But Wayne, I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, because of the president's requirement for mask wearing that was put in place shortly after the inauguration, that fell on federal transit, which in turn trickled down to MnDOT, and MnDOT said we were required to have a mask policy. We've been requiring masks since I think summer of last year, somewhere in there. It's been quite some time already. Drivers were required to wear the masks while they had anyone on the bus with them. Otherwise, when they're driving from pickup to pickup, they weren't required. So we've had signs up in all of the buses requiring masks. Drivers were given masks that were donated to transit to carry on the buses and give to passengers as needed. And this more formalizes the policy that was in effect since last summer sometime. It documents it, I guess, is more the issue. There's a few things in there too to help the drivers with how to deal with passengers, a little more instructive, detailed, I guess, as to what the process would be if someone tries to board the bus without a mask.
All right, Mr. Chair and members, if you have any questions for Wayne, that's great. This isn't something that we necessarily need action on. It is something that, as per your past practice, as the administrator for MRVT, I can sign off on. Again, this is a requirement. We are required to do this by the feds. So you could even say that you don't want to do it, and then that would mean that funding would stop, and that would be bad. And so that's kind of where we are, and we want you to know and understand that as things change, as more vaccinations occur, as our environment continues to change, we'll change with that and kind of keep you in the loop. As we have on COVID for past meetings, we'll do that going forward for future meetings as well.
Perfect. Does anybody have any questions?
Just one quick one, Chair Sullivan. Has there been any issues for drivers with students, or not students, with passengers, or has it gone pretty smoothly?
There's always the occasional one that likes to push things. Drivers are instructed, as the policy says, if it's not an ADA or a medical issue that precludes a person from wearing a mask, they either wear a mask or they are allowed to use other forms of transportation. So,
Emily, did you have a question?
I had the same question, and I also wanted to just make a comment that I appreciate that this policy talks about wearing a mask over the mouth and the nose. I've been hearing and seeing more comments about that in general from businesses and having an issue with people wearing them improperly. And I think there's some fatigue involved in that, and people kind of getting tired of this. And so I appreciate seeing that in the policy. So thank you, Wayne, for including that.
okay, welcome.
Any further discussion on this?
I will mention that people have been alerted, and as you know, the vast majority of rides that we get are call in advance. And so Sandy put in place a protocol with dispatchers to alert folks to this. I don't think that we're actively doing it now. We've been in it for such a long time. And the vast majority of the ridership that we have is reoccurring riders. So they kind of know the drill already, and we alerted them as a part of their reservation process. So that was good. That was good for us to be able to do as well.
All right, if there's no further discussion on this, we'll move on to a funding update and fare report. I don't know who's going to take that on, Todd.
So let's talk. I just want to give you some additional information, and Wayne and Sandy and Sally jump in as you think is appropriate with this one. My goal wasn't to go through the finance discussion, which Sally will do under administrative reports as she typically does. But just to let you know that as far as we are aware, let me back up. A couple of meetings ago with the regional representative from DOT, there was a discussion about a push to see you change from your 80-20 split to an 85-15 split. Wayne would nod and let us know that our regional person now has taken or is taking a different job. And so we don't know that that really got pushed, but it is something we're going to continue to press and hope that our new person will take care of, or Melanie, our outgoing person, will continue to push. Now, this isn't a guarantee that we'll get that, but certainly it is on a burner that has some heat applied to it with her change in status. That relates to fares, of course. We continue to be in a no fare status, except for those listed. And I think that's serving your community really well. just to alert everyone, again, that ends at the end of this year, theoretically. We do want to make you be prepared that that is based on state funding. And a few weeks ago, I would have said, ooh, I don't know with potential shortfall, but now that the state appears to be in $1 billion surplus, I'm not as concerned about that as I was maybe a few weeks back. But that's not to say it couldn't change going forward. Wayne, Sandy, anything else that we need to mention? Sally, anything else that you want to mention outside of the regular kind of finance report that you provide under administrative reports?
No, I think you covered it, Todd.
All right. Wayne, Sandy, anything from you guys on this front?
I just add one thing. I did email Melinda Esty, the project manager, this week earlier. She replied that she had not gotten any response as yet. She said even though she's moving to a different position, she would keep it at the forefront and make sure that her replacement does the same. So I would expect that we'll have some discussions as we get closer to the grant application in July, as far as what that percentage may be.
Yeah. All right. Mr. Chair, members, any questions for us on this or where that may or may not be headed? We're happy to do our best to answer.
Okay, has anybody got any questions or want Todd to explain that more with the split?
And David, we'll go through this as a part of your orientation after this too, to give you more of a, how this kind of fits all together in the big picture.
Okay, perfect. If not, then we'll move on to reports. Operations.
That's Wayne.
Okay.
Or Sandy. Sandy, that's you, sorry.
All right, I sent out a graph and some numbers. That was the back pages of the packet. And I did miss some numbers for Gus Davis. I forgot to add the September through December numbers in there. So the weekly average for 2019, the total was 16,110 rides. Then if you add in the 4 months of Gus Davis that I miss, we had 22,984 rides in 2019. So the total rides for 2019 were 87,424 rides. And then in 2020, because I had broke those down in weekly averages, we had a total of 8793 for the weekly average, but for the year we had 35,172 rides with 9,022 for Gus Davis, which we stopped running after March due to COVID. And so for 2020 we had a total of 44,194 rides total. So
All right.
we are about almost half, less than half rides from 2019 to 2020.
Sandy, do you have any sense, or maybe Wayne, do you guys have any sense about how that might relate to other rural transit systems? My guess is that actually we're probably a little bit higher as a percentage of 2019 total for 2020 than a lot of other ones might be.
That I'm not for sure.
It's
Yeah,
okay. The state will be pushing out some numbers, but from my perspective, this feels actually pretty good. I'm a little bit surprised that we got up to that 44,000 number based on what was going on with COVID.
Well, Sandy, this is Steve. Is there any talk about resuming Gus Davis bus?
Not for the rest of this school year, but I think, Wayne, they were going to contact us maybe this late summer for 2021, 2022.
I am expecting, I have communicated with Megan Rubel up at Gustavus, and she said they would not be restarting this academic year, but that they were expecting in September they would get it rolling again.
Okay. Thank you, Wayne, Sandy.
You're welcome.
All right, does anybody else have questions for Sandy?
If I could,
Yeah.
Marvin, let me ask Sandy just a couple of things just to lead her to talk a little bit more about operations. Sandy, we have a couple new drivers since last time we're in place and a couple
We
new
have-
licensing.
Yep, we have Grant Nelson, who was our full-time driver. Grant is driving St. Peter. He's full-time over there, and Grant is doing great. He's caught on real quick, got the tablet, and is doing great. We also hired Michelle Lopez as a part-time driver, and Michelle is going to fill in as needed, so she'll be driving here in Sueur and St. Peter also.
Sandy, is there still some thought that we might cross-train her a little bit for dispatching potentially a little bit later on?
Yes, after we get Michelle trained in and she's you know, doing the bus routes well, then yes, our plan is to train her in here at dispatch so we have backup. And then Todd, I was just going to bring up also that April 21st and April 22nd, we have our annual State Patrol wheelchair inspections. Those come to Sueur the 21st and the 22nd in St. Peter. And that's where they're going to come in. They'll check the lifts. They'll do a cycle, make sure that all the safety features are working. And then they check the restraints for frays, rips, and then make sure that the pucks that are mounted in the floor are secure. And then the part that inserts into the puck, you know, they'll check all that to make sure all the screws are tight and things like that. So that's something that they do usually every April.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because that safety factor for those riders that we have is so important. So thanks for talking about that. That's great.
And that's all I have.
All right, any questions?
Are we still helping out with Meals on Wheels?
Meals on Wheels is we are running till the end of this month, and then as of April 1st, we are going to be done with Meals on Wheels. We've done it almost for a month, 5 days a week, and then this month we ran last week the full week, and then every other month we're just going to be doing Tuesdays because they do have a couple volunteers that are coming back in and doing some of the routes. But yeah, the 31st of March is our last day.
Okay.
Just for the board, for new members and for past members to jog your memory, this is something that was allowed through DOT as a part of COVID, and now it's coming to an end because volunteers ran very, very short during COVID, as you can imagine. Oftentimes, you know, it was 75-year-old people delivering lunches to 80-year-old people. And so during COVID, that was a struggle. And it really took hold here in St. Peter. We did offer in Sueur, but Sueur seemed to be able to do just fine and didn't accept our offer. And that was perfectly cool too. And so just so that you know kind of the history and how that's kind of unfurled.
I think it's a real testament to small town, anonymity, you know, working together. So I really appreciate MRVT doing that. So thank you.
Yeah, rec department was a help. They provided the runners a lot of times. So the drivers would drive the bus from location to location, and there'd be a volunteer or a rec staff that would run it into the house or the apartment and that kind of thing. So that was a great partnership too, I thought.
Well, thank you. Any other questions? If not, we'll move into the compliance manager. Go ahead, Wayne.
Todd asked me to talk just a little bit about our drug and alcohol testing program. MRVT is required under Federal Transit Administration and DOT regulations to have a drug and alcohol testing program. And the program itself is very tightly regulated, both by MnDOT and FTA. There are actually 6 different types of drug tests that are possible to be done. Pre-employment, reasonable suspicion, post-accident, return to duty, follow-up testing, and random. The 2 most common ones that we do are pre-employment, which simply means when we hire a new driver or we put someone on driving status who has not been driving, they're required to have a negative drug test before they can be put into what's known as a safety sensitive position, i.e. driving. That happens for everyone when they come in. Once they are on the staff in a safety sensitive position, they become part of the testing pool for random testing. MRVT uses Minnesota Municipal Utilities Association as our third party administrator, and they in turn work with a medical review firm down in St. Louis. So the medical review firm will take our list of employees on a regular basis. We've been operating on a monthly for about the last 8 months because of the turnover of drivers, drivers who weren't able to drive, scheduling issues. So we were doing a little more frequently. We'll be going back to a quarterly draw in April. So in April, I'll get a list of those employees who are randomly selected from our list. And during the quarter of that list, I will determine when to send them. The MnDOT monitors to make sure that we test on all days that we have service and during all hours of the days that we have service. So there has to be a spread across the days of the week and the hours of the day that we have buses out and on the road. So drivers are sent to Rivers Edge Hospital. They go to the lab, and the lab techs will collect the samples. Samples are sent to a lab. I think there are 2 labs nationally that can be used that are certified. The lab runs the urine sample through their testing procedure. There are 5 different drugs that they are looking for. 5 are marijuana, cocaine, amphetamines, opioids, and phencyclidine or PCP. So they run the test on those, and depending upon the result, in my time here, knock on wood, since 2013, we've had no positive tests. Negative tests are reported about 4 or 5 days later via email. So the one instance that I'm aware of, we had one driver that because of prescription medication, there was some question and a positive result. In that instance, and this was self-reported by the driver, the medical review officer called and asked about his prescriptions. He documented those as required, and it was recorded as a negative because the metabolites of that prescription mimicked other drugs in that screen. So we test for two different, there's the drug test and there's also alcohol. Alcohol tests are done by the lab technicians at Rivers Edge on a test instrument similar to what law enforcement uses in DUI cases. The testing frequency or sampling rate is 50% for drugs and 25% for alcohol. And what that means is if you take our testing pool through an entire year, you can expect that 50% or slightly over of that number of drivers will be tested for drugs during that year. And the same applies with alcohol, but at a lesser frequency. Approximately 25 or a little over % of the drivers will get tested for alcohol. So while we can't say that 25% of them will be or 50% will be, because it's not impossible for a driver to be tested more than once in a calendar year because of that randomness of the selections. So we are currently around 20 safety sensitive employees. So my expectation is we'll have approximately 1 a month. And it has happened. It's not impossible. We'll frequently have drug only tests. We will have drivers who are pulled for drug and alcohol. And on occasion, we'll have a driver sent strictly for the alcohol testing. So I I don't want to bore you with more details, but I'll certainly answer questions. Generally, most of this testing detail is days of training to differentiate the stuff. So,
Mr. Chair and members, the reason that I had Wayne go through this a little bit is because safety of your passengers is really important. And this is a cost that changed dramatically from 2019 to 2020. In 2021 as a part of your budget, the FTA almost doubled their frequency rate. But safety first, and so we want you to know how that works out. It's also important to note that Wayne and Sandy also drive bus, and so they are listed within those participants that are pulled on occasion as well as a part of that pool.
So Wayne, I actually have a question for you in regards to that. So knowing that you're essentially in that pool, how do you determine when you take a test? So I mean, you follow what I'm asking.
Great question. Great
yeah,
question.
Very, very astute question. We messed with, or not messed with, that was troubling, and we got guidance from MnDOT. When I received the list, Todd and Barbara, I believe Barbara also receives it at the same time. It is recorded when I open the email. If I open the email and I'm in the list, I immediately go to the lab for the test.
Okay.
So, and as Todd mentioned, our costs did increase in 2019. The FTA, Federal Transit, monitors the percentage of positive tests. And there is a benchmark at which point they increase the sampling. And at the end of 2018, it went over 1% of tests done were positive. That triggered an increase from 25% to 50%. It's hovered around 1.01% since. So it's so minutely above, but that was the benchmark, and it doubled the cost and handling of the samples through the hospitals.
Yeah. And that benchmarking isn't us, that's systems wide that are FTA.
Nationwide.
Yeah, who carry passengers. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, any further questions for Wayne?
Well, Mr. Chair, this is Steve Grams. I just wanted to say, maybe you as chair and myself, maybe we have a real trust issue with our managers, because I was going to ask the same question. So thank you for bringing that up. So
Actually,
I'm kind of joshing though about trust. So yeah. But
I was going to say, actually, it was a little bit of a quandary when the DRE changed from me to Wayne. So that was a process that we got well schooled on and had to figure out a little bit, because it used to be me that took care of that, and it's much better placed with Wayne, let me tell you.
Thank you, Mr.
Yep. Any further questions? If not, we'll move on to Todd's report.
So Mr. Chair and members, I don't really have any additional report other than to let Sally give you a brief update on where we are financially. As you can see, the bill list is in your packet all the time, but she can talk a little bit about how you are relative to budget. This is all a little bit academic in that we want to make sure that we're adhering to budget, because it's an important planning tool and cost control tool. But as you know, with funding coming from DOT, I don't know, if you're $10 over or $10 under, you're either getting $10 more or $10 less from DOT right now, but it's important. So Sally, I'll let you take it away from there.
Yeah, as Wayne said, with the 100% funding, we're not watching quite, we are watching closely, but we are getting funded 100%. So it's not like this 80-20 split that we want to make sure that we're getting revenues in to cover, because we're not getting any revenues in, we're not collecting anything, or very little revenues right now. We are running, below budget, just basically because of service and some other things. So, the Gus bus, that expense is gone, but the revenue is gone too. So basically, we are okay with that assumption that we have in the budget, that what we budget, when we have dispatch and drivers for Gus bus that are doing that, we are getting the revenue to cover it. So I think we're pretty good on that whole calculation on the hourly rates we have been charging this day bus when they are running. So I think that's a good thing. And with the 100% funding, we'll be good through the end of the year. We will start budgeting again. It's a 2-year budget cycle. So come July, we'll be talking budgets again and where we want to go and how we want to go with that. If we're going to do advertising and everything else, if people will renew those and go from there on the buses, because that was a nice revenue generator for us. So, but overall, things are going well. You have a positive cash balance right now at about 125,000 last time I checked. So we're doing okay.
Yeah, that's right in our zone. That's really where we want to be from a cash reserve perspective, cash flow.
Well, thanks,
And-
Sally.
Yep, and Dave, just so you know, we have not, neither Sueur or St. Peter levy for any MRVT costs at this point. We basically have been funding ourselves through the federal and state reimbursement and then our 20%. So using cash reserves a little bit when we've had to, but that's been quite a while since we've had to do that. So we're doing well.
All right. Any questions for Todd or Sally? If not, our next meeting is May 11th, correct, Todd?
I believe that's correct.
And that'll be at 2:30 again. And hopefully
Yes.
maybe be in person for that one, huh? Maybe?
Yeah, we'll see how that works out. We'll kind of continue to play it by ear, Mr. Chair.
Sounds good. Look for adjournment then.
Emily will so move.
Second, Swanberg.
I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Welcome,
thank you.
Dave.
Thanks,
Aye.
Todd.
Thank
Yep.
you.